What's up, everyone? It's Bones here. Today we'll be taking a look at the meta while discussing some of the things that we could see moving forward, as we recently just got a ban list that created some shifts in the format, while opening the doors to more diversity. But first, if you're a fan of in-depth combo videos, new set coverage, and more potential fun stuff like this, then super smash those thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you'd like to see more monthly meta reviews like this. Now, I want to point out that I will be using sort of outdated charts. As you see, we have Cash Tira on the top, and this won't be here for the foreseeable future, as with the Arise Heart banning, its turn 1 isn't quite worth the inconsistency issues in my opinion, especially if your plan is just to put in a bunch of floodgates to replace it. That said, you can see that this chart is still very diverse under it, and I think that all of these decks have some sort of relevancy moving forward into the new format, where I think Unchained and Purely will be the safe picks moving forward, where Flu is a deck that's here at 9.4% because of how it can counter Unchained. The ability to play Shifter as well is really nice for this deck moving forward, as not a lot of decks will be able to main it, which is one big shift that we'll see compared to the previous format. Now, I'd also like to touch up on Mana Diem. I do think Mana Diem is also kind of a sleeper pick just because combo decks will always perform, especially if unprepared for, and I think that with the preparation that we'll see go towards other decks like Unchained and Purely, it means that we may see some room for this to put in a similar output of the 6.3% range. I don't think that it will dominate the top cut or even representation because of what it takes to play it. But that said, another thing that I would like to point out is that we have another large other pile here, and it's just because there are a lot of decks like Chimera that aren't even shown here. And in Europe specifically, we have a couple of plant players that tend to go really far. So that's something else that you may want to account for if you're going to this event, or just if you want to prepare for the deck in general, if you're expecting it to get hype, especially after we saw it get hype after winning a WCQ, I believe it was, just a couple of months ago, and the fact that it remains unhit means it's something that you shouldn't sleep on. Dragon Link has also been hit. Down here, you'll notice that there is Bestial Dragon Link at 18.8%, and with Magna Hut now at 1 as well as Chaos Base, it means that the deck is less consistent, but I don't think it's necessarily dead. I just think that we're going to see people adapt with it over time. And I would also like to point out something that is not in these charts. Tier limits with the banning of Arise Heart could see a comeback, as we don't have as many shifter decks either, unless Fluid manages to sort of take over the next couple of months somehow, but I just don't see that happening. We also saw Magna Hut go to 1, which means that there's less Bestial names, even though most people just do play smaller engines. So that's just one less minor obstacle it has to go through. But another thing that I like about tier moving forward is the fact that all the cards that you want to play going second happen to be really strong cards this format, where Kaijus happen to be a counter to Purely, where you can just get rid of the Nor. Fenrir is one of the strongest cards in the format, and the fact that you're already playing Tier Limits Cash Tira, you can slap in one of the planets, or just play 3 Fenrir. The Thrust and Talon, super strong this format, as well as the Super Polys, which in tier is always a strong card. And if you don't believe me, you can see the price on the planet back up to about $50. It's probably lower now. Since we've had hype come down a little bit, we see some near mint first eds at $41, or $40.96 if you want to be that guy. But my entire point is, with a Rise Heart band, the diversity shown in these charts are only going to be more expansive until we get Age of Overlords, which means that even more decks will come, as we'll be getting the Horus stuff, which can be a mini engine for a ton of decks, as well as the Dia Bellstar and Snake Eyes stuff. There's also IP Masquerena and Little Knight, which may change the fundamentals of how some decks play, so that is important to note. Now, I want to talk about some trends moving forward, because we've seen Cash Tira get hit, Dragon Link got hit, which really isn't the most impactful thing, but Gazelle also came back to 3. And if you're playing in the YCS this weekend, I know that Europe was a very popular place in TOS format for Salamangreat. NA kinda had the Sky Striker thing going on, and seeing as we're getting a YCS in Europe just a few days after the list takes effect where we have 3 gazelles, it wouldn't surprise me if we see some capacity of representation for the deck, which leads me to believe that there's stuff like Crow that could see some play in this YCS just because we have decks like Unchained that can also get hit by it, being able to potentially banish a purely quick play spell, and they also want to be able to play hand traps, so if they can play Crows, it's also good for them, as the purely game plan is just to draw off of the Sleepy Memories while you have the Little Nor, and then jumping into the Big Nor, which brings me to my next card. Crossout Designator is a sleeper card, sort of, because with the diversity in decks this format, it means that cards like Imperm and Ash are going to be much more prevalent than previous formats. I think everyone is playing Thrust and Talons. Forbidden Droplet is also seeing play, as we don't have a Rise Heart anymore in the format, and Shifter won't see nearly as much play as last format. That said, it's also important to note, because with this diversity comes a lot of problems with a lot of the decks in the meta, like Salamangrate. Even if this isn't a quote-unquote deck in the meta, it is something that could see play, and it does get hit hard by Nibiru if you don't have the extenders to play around it. So that's just one example of a deck that may want to play Crossout. A more relevant example is Chimera. Chimera really doesn't want to get ashed or impermed on the Baphomet, and the Branded Fusion is another thing that things like Branded Despia and Chimera, they don't want their Branded Fusion to get ashed. So Crossout can be another strong option for Chimera. And then there's even Escuace, which has Turbulence that doesn't want to get hit with the Imperm. Same thing with the Hydrant. You don't want that to get ashed or impermed, depending on the point in time that you use it. But the priority is always protecting Turbulence, as this is really what you want to go off. Just watching it get hit by Imperm really dampen your strategy. Another thing that I would like to mention when it comes to Mana Diem is Hot Red King Calamity, and that's something that you may also want to prepare for, which means putting stuff like Droll into your side deck could really be mandatory, because there's also going to be random people who are just playing Dark World for the heck of it, and that is a really strong deck if you don't have the preparations for that. So just when it comes to combo decks, you want to have the cards to answer them, or else they will run you over. Another interesting deck I would like to talk about is Vanquish Soul, and I just think the ability to play Shifter while being a control strategy in a format where there isn't really too many oppressive boards outside of Mana Diem maybe purely is a little bit obnoxious if you can't out the Nor. But the point is that once that purely player starts seeing his quick play go into the graveyard or go into the banish zone, it's not going to be fun for that purely player. This deck can also play stuff like There Can Be Only One, so I wouldn't be surprised to see this do relatively well in the next YCS. I think that Labyrinth is a deck that isn't in the greatest of spots right now, just because so many other decks moved up into its tier. Being a back row deck with how many outs to back row there are, and all the gas that these decks have to play through it, aren't really doing favors for it. Princess is another interesting option that I could maybe see top a YCS. I don't know how it'll do in Dortmund. I know here in North America, we've actually had a couple players have gotten results with this deck. I'm not telling you it's something that you really want to prepare for. If you come across it, it's something that you want to know how to play again. Now, this is kind of a 2-for-1, but another option that I didn't talk about that we didn't see on the charts is Sprite. And you'll see that I have a small resonator engine in here from one of my previous videos. This is just more of a potential fun concept, but I bring it up because Sprite in general, with Runic being untouched and the For Hire engine still being a pretty solid pairing with this deck, could make it something that can see potential results, especially now that we're entering a format where people know that Runic won't be hit in the next month or so people will have more confidence in bringing these cards back out. So that's just something else important to mention. And I guess that there's also other combo decks like Infernoble Knights, but that happens to lose to some of the same stuff as Mana Diem and Dark World. So as long as you're playing your Drolls, you have your Dark Rulers, and pretty much your anti-combo stuff, you should be fine as long as you know how to play against the strategy. But with all of that out of the way, I'd like to wish the people going to the next event good luck, and for everyone who's made it this far into the video, I'd like to thank you for watching and for the 600 plus subs. I truly appreciate your support. We've monetized the channel, giving us access to supers and memberships, which means that more awesome stuff is on the horizon. To get the channel membership, just click on the description below, and there will be a link that takes you there. You'll also notice a free Discord link that I've made for us too. If you want to support me as a content creator, even if you can't donate supers or get a membership for the channel, clicking on those thumbs up and subscribe buttons help a lot too. For those wondering, I do plan on making updates to the channel as the support on the channel grows. Anyways, I hope to see you on the next one. It's Bones, signing out.